Hello, hello. Welcome back for those of you who have watched one of my live streams before, but this is a brand new series. So welcome, whoever you are following this series today. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Toni Collis. I'm an executive coach, a women's technology leader, aficionado, I guess. Somebody who just really believes the world will be a better place with more women in tech leadership, and I'm on a mission to do something to improve the situation for women in tech. And that includes CEOs, which is kind of the point of this series. Today, I am joined by the simply fabulous Mary Rombaut. Mary, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and do yourself justice?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Toni. I'm Mary Rombaut, the CEO and founder of R Squared Solutions, as well as Recommenda AI. R Squared Solutions is a full-service strategy-centered marketing agency, and Recommenda AI is a free tool to help companies identify the right marketing technology for their business. So I am very passionate about helping companies make smarter decisions rooted in strategy. And particularly working with female founders and CEOs is a passion of mine, and partly how I got connected with Toni.
Yeah, we definitely have a shared passion here that women make extraordinary leaders. It doesn't mean that men don't have a place. Don't get me wrong. That's not what we're here for. It is about realizing that the world doesn't fully support women. That when we do have women at the table, whether as a CEO or as part of the executive team, we know businesses do better, despite what some folks are currently saying, that like we shouldn't be talking about DEI. It is just good for business to have more women at the table. So if you're a woman CEO listening to this, or an aspiring CEO, we know we have a few aspiring CEOs that might be joining us today. Kudos to you for joining and getting this in your head soon. This is really about unlocking that next level for you, because something I have seen time and time again, and why a lot of women come and work with me, is they have reached a bottleneck. They are burning out. They are overworked. They're overstimulated. As Mary put it to me, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Just to steal a particular phrase.
Yeah.
We become the bottleneck in a business. We are unintentionally slowing growth, reducing the value that we bring to the table because we're too involved once we've gone beyond the point of need to be. And it's a really hard situation. You don't have money into the bank to spend, but if you don't invest in stepping away, you aren't going to grow. You are the bottleneck. Mary, let's just start with your experience here. Maybe start with your experience actually as a founder, rather than, obviously we're going to talk about your experience of working with founders, but you are also a founder yourself. So what's been your experience here?
Sure. So, I think as founders, when we are getting started originally, we are everything, right? We are marketing, we are operations, we are sales. And as you're growing and those functions are growing, you're growing with them. But it's hard to kind of take that view outside that lens and say, okay, when is it I let go? Or if you are, a founder or CEO with a company that has already grown, right? And you have a team in leadership positions, I think it can also be hard to sit there and say, looking at the talent and saying, who needs me, who doesn't, where am I truly needed? And I think I've struggled with two different businesses, kind of separating myself and allowing, I have a trusted team who I truly believe in. I know their strengths. But sometimes you have to sit back and say, not only what are their strengths, but what are they great at doing? And that has helped me kind of unbreak that bottleneck a little bit by saying, like, what do I enjoy doing the most? Right?
Yeah.
That's the easiest place for me to let go of, where I'm like, I don't like doing anything with accounting. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just not.
And it's a common thing for you and I. Were like, no, that's the first thing to offload, right?
don't want to do that. Don't like it. And it doesn't serve the business for me to be spending time on things that I don't enjoy. And I believe that across the entire organization. Yes, we all have parts of our job that we don't love doing, but try to give yourself and your team the things they love doing, and because you're going to do it better, right? And that's really helped me in terms of breaking the bottleneck, saying, like, if I don't enjoy doing this, it's taking me longer, which is costing me more, and the
Yes.
output isn't going to be as good as somebody who does love to do it.
I actually think it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think there are actually multiple types of bottlenecks going on, or rather multiple reasons why we bottleneck. The first is money. It is purely like, I don't have the money to hire for this position. We hold on to things for too long because it's we've got to spend money, and it's about being creative in that situation and what we do. And I think we should come back to that later about learning to jump before you're ready, but and being okay if it backfires. I know I've certainly been in that situation. I've invested earlier, it didn't work out that time, I stepped back, I regrouped, and then I did it better the second time. And I did it better the second time because of the learning. So we're going to come back to that one. The second one is we hold on to things for longer because we are very particular about how it's done. It might not be our zone of genius, but we're very particular, right? And I think this is one of the things for you, Mary, in that as a marketer, I know you said to me not that long ago, like, you're like, well, I've got a whole lot of CMOs working for me. Like, I could offload to them, but it's your baby. You don't offload. I think that's the second bottleneck, is we hold on to things that we're very particular about. And then the third thing we hold on to that maybe we shouldn't are the things where it's delightful to us. Like, we don't want to let go of it, but it doesn't need to be. It's because then there's the fourth category, which is like, this needs to be you. And that, what we want to dig into today, in my opinion, is understanding what needs to be with you as a CEO. Also, when to I think we're going to come to this a little bit over the next few weeks, of like when to invest is a hard one, but we need to understand, is this something you have to own or not as a CEO? And as your business grows, what you own changes. It should do. You should not, after 12 months, be owning what you did 12 months ago. And I would say that applies to every single 12 months, unless you were like, you've got to the stage you're going to get to, whether that's $1 million turnover or $1 billion turnover. Once you got to your stage, fair enough. When I put it like that, Mary, do you agree with those four kind of categories, those buckets of like bottlenecking that we do?
Absolutely. And one of the questions I want to ask you, Toni, so for those watching, Toni is actually my executive coach as well. So I can speak from experience on how she has helped me break through these bottlenecks. But can you share a little bit about how you help those working with you to find that balance between being seen and being needed? Because I think that is very central to this conversation, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And until you did give me a heads up that was one of the things, but I didn't really think of it that way. I think this is where I love your marketing lens. And for full disclosure, I've been leaning on Mary to do some of my marketing. So this is like a two-way mutual wonderfulness that's going on here. One of the things I really realized is being seen and being busy are not the same thing, right? And one of the things I learned very early on in my career, actually not even way before I started a business, is that visibility of CEOs and executives calms things down. It makes things run smoother. It doesn't mean that they're in the weeds. The mistake we make is being in the weeds as a CEO. I've just before this hour, I was coaching one of my executive clients who's was reporting into a CEO. She's just had somebody slotted in between her and the CEO's. Ruffled feathers, that happens. All of you at some point listening will hopefully get to the point where you are inserting somebody and you have to deal with those ruffled feathers. I've got the client who's got the ruffled feathers right now. And what she has noticed is the relationship she's got with this new person is, I was like, well, this guy has a lot more leadership credentials than your CEO did. Your CEO is behaving what I call small CEO brain. We're in the weeds on everything. We have to know everything. We aren't just visible, but we're in the weeds. Her new boss has been brought in to help the company grow. He's got bigger bigger company experience. He is like, go do your thing to my client. Go do your thing. Come to me with problems. And I think this is one of the key things. Being visible is being the person that says, this is the mission, this is the vision, let's go. And being very visible with that. Being there and saying, come to me all the time. But it's not going, why did you I don't agree with how you did that. It's not, I can do that faster, I'll do it for you. It is being very visible, always talking about the vision and the mission, the direction, providing correction to the direction when they get it wrong, but not saying, hey, we need to go redo that unless you absolutely have to redo that. Does that answer your question, Mary?
It does. And it makes me think when, my background is rooted in strategic planning. I got into marketing later, but mission, vision, goals, strategic plan, right? That every organization should have, that is the CEO's job, right? To bring the strategic plan to fruition. That is what you are, a shepherd of the mission, vision, and goals. And if what you are doing is not advancing towards that, bringing that vision to life, you are doing something you should not be doing.
I mean, one of the things to consider here is, like, what does it look like to be collaborative with your team? And I think this is a great way to start with, are you holding on to too much? Have any of you, actually, I would love it. Pop in the comments as we go along here, ladies. I'm assuming it's mainly ladies listening. Gentlemen, you're welcome, but, pop in the comments as we go, and particularly with any questions you've got. Mary and I would be delighted to answer your questions, but I'd actually like to know in the comments from anybody, like, have you ever looked at how you're collaborating rather than telling people what to do? Have you ever considered that question? If you're like, well, of course I collaborate, but you've never considered it, give me a thumbs up. Like, you think you collaborate, but you've never taken a conscious moment to consider how. Because I do think collaboration is a very key piece of understanding here, and it is the first thing to help you with a CEO's dilemma, right? Letting go of all the doing. The first step before you add another person onto your plate, and you're worried about how you're going to pay for them, the first thing is, like, look at who you've got. How are you collaborating with them, rather than maybe leaning in a bit too much and telling them how to do everything. It's as simple as, I've got a friend who runs a little cafe, and she said to me, they have asked me 5 times today, where's the milk? Because they've just moved premises. And she's like, how do they not know? I was like, sure, it's just in the fridge. She's like, yes, it's in the fridge. How do they not know? And I meant to say to her, I said, like, well, maybe you just need to, like, not answer the question and make them figure it out. Collaboration is sometimes getting somebody to figure it out for themselves, so their brain shifts. They know where the milk is, right?
Totally. Absolutely. That is such a great example, Toni. That is such a great example. I mean, and I think we do this a lot in life, and we don't even realize we're doing it. I think of my husband, who can't find the ketchup right in front of his face. And it's like, sometimes when it's like, I just leave. I'm like, you will find it. I know it. I have the faith in you that you can do it. You've got to find that faith in your team as well. And most of us were team leaders before we were CEOs, right? We were in other companies as team leads. And sometimes I think we forget about who we were as a team lead within an organization that wasn't our own. You know what I mean? We behaved differently. We coached up. We found, we gave stretch assignments and all of the things we knew we were supposed to do. And then you became CEO, and it's like, wait, I've got to go back to those core leadership characteristics and abilities that I had when I worked for somebody else.
Actually, you've made me think of a key thing that I tell a lot of more junior people, like the people reporting into the CEO, to do. And I think more CEOs should ask for it, because I think, again, before you even consider spending more money, this is a great way to just free up your brain. Because step 1 is free up your brain, and then we can talk about bringing in other things. But a great thing, I get people reporting into executives to write a weekly report that says, here's what's going on here are all the things I'm responsible for, here's what I've done, here's what's on pause and why, even if it's the same as it was last week, here's what's on pause and why, here's what I'm focused on right now, here's a recap of our weekly meeting if you have one, here's what I'm doing next week. We often do that in a one-on-one, and guess what? Your CEO is too damn busy to remember, and also it's not a good time for synchronization. It is much better to write it down and then recap any decisions that were made in that weekly email. So it's written down, decisions are written down. But the most important thing here is, I have this with my team. I'm like, I gave that to my team a month ago. What's happened? Part of my brain knows I got an update about it, but I can't for the life of me remember. Because as CEOs, you're listening to this, you're probably all the same. Our brains are so damn full. We cannot hold on to all the threads. You need your team to give you really powerful updates in a way that you can revisit when you're like, what was that thing? You're not just pinging them every day in Slack or by email, asking for another update. And they're like, oh. And so you stop asking because you feel like a bad boss. And then you're like, I don't know what's going on in my business. It takes up so much brain space. Get into a habit that your entire team gives you regular updates. What's going on? What's stalled and why? Because you probably agreed it, but like you're not going to remember it as a CEO. If you do that, your brain will suddenly be less full. And then we can move on to like, what do you do with that? Because we're going to talk about what we do need to be doing. At the moment, I think we've really focused on what you need to do less of, but I think it's such a powerful way to like really let go of your brain being full of things it doesn't need to be full of.
Excellent point. Do you want to move into kind of now, like if we are letting go, what we can do with that time?
Oh yeah, let's talk about the company not just being you. And this is the bit you're really passionate about, because I think all of us as a business owner, our company is our brand. It's our face, our voice, it's our brain, it's everything, right? We are the face of the business. If you are, whatever you're doing, you are probably the person closing the first deals, right? You're the one still brought in for the big deals, even if you've got a salesperson. You might have a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever it is. Like, you are the brand itself. The reputation is you. And I think it's really powerful to ask yourself, okay, your reputation is you. Like, it's there for your baby. All the cogs underneath has started with you as well. So how do you hand off? Where do you start? Like, what does it mean to be you, to be the company? What is it that you should be looking at handing over? So Mary, do you want to dive into some of this? Because I know you've been going through this yourself, and also as a marketer, you're passionate about this too.
Yeah, I absolutely am, because it's honestly a common pitfall of founders, men and women, right? That they do make the brand about them, and then don't understand how to separate the two, first of all, but then and how does that hurt them, right? Because first of all, if you ever plan to sell your company, the more it is dependent on you in any way, your company is worth less.
Yeah.
You know, that is something that you have to keep in mind when you're building the brand. And I mean, as a marketer, I look at this when I work with my clients, I do my branding exercises around the person and the company separately. Yes, there's going to be overlap. There should be overlap, but I treat them as two distinct clients, the person and the company. And we ate strategies such that they are supportive of one another, but distinct. And, you know, if you are early in your entrepreneurial journey, I encourage you to think about this from the start. Yes, it's more work. Yes, it's more to keep track of, but it will serve you better from a marketing perspective in the long run. And it helps you keep the voices distinct, which is so important, because you are an individual. You do have a distinct voice and feelings and thoughts, and that you don't want that to be the brand. And why do you not want that to be the brand? Because brand marketing is the company's voice. It's what you do. It's how you do it. You may be the person who's doing some of it, but you are not the brand. And getting founders to sit with that and be okay with that is a challenge. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I really want to talk about here is being an amplifier. And actually, this ties into a theory in coaching called the multiplier effect. Great leaders multiply. It's not additive, it's multiplicative. So if you bring in if you're a great leader and you bring in great talent, you add one person, that isn't just you plus that person. It should be 4x, right? You multiply together, because you have different skill sets. You should be resonating in a different way together. You should be there might be some tension, but it's really helping. And I think one of the things that happens there is amplifying. I think this is one of the most beautiful things we can do as CEOs, is learn how to leverage our team to amplify what we do. And I know, Mary, like you do fractional CMO work, and you've mentioned that me as your executive coach is like a sweet combination for you. Like those things, like why does a partnership with a CEO work so well? I mean, women CEOs, yes, but just generally, like, what is it about the partnership piece in with coaching, with having a great leader? Like, what is it that you think helps people amplify and multiply in your experience as a CEO?
So in terms of my team or the
Yes.
CEO themselves?
Well, I bet of both actually, because I think, the CEO themselves need to hear how they're multiplying, but then one of the reasons they're multiplying is what's happening with their team. So maybe talk from both experiences there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, building your team up and like kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about finding their passion, finding what truly gets them up in every day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I, as a CEO, try to amplify. And I mean, I have members of my team who, in a year, what motivates them and what they enjoy doing the most
Mm-hmm.
changes 2 to 3 times.
Yeah.
So this isn't like a one and done type question. It's I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly checking in on them about like, what do you enjoy doing the most right now?
I love that. Yeah.
What do you, because I think you can kind of get those things stuck in your head. And then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I've now typecast this person as,
Yeah.
so and so loves doing this. And maybe they did too much of it and now they don't love doing it as much. Or in a
Mm-hmm.
marketing world, we as marketers can kind of get stale doing certain things, right? And that's one of the reasons at R Squared, we collaborate as a full CMO team about
Mm-hmm.
across our clients,
I love
because
that.
I want my CMOs to be talking to each other about what is working and isn't working with in terms of marketing for their clients, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can learn from each other and apply it to other clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that collaboration piece is important to this as well with your team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
making sure that people truly are talking, and not just talking, collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
And that talking and collaborating are two different things, because collaboration is the action after the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to actually take that and now let's talk about like a step-by-step approach. Like, what can people do today? I've actually just been thinking about like what is it that you and I have done for your business, for example. And I think, and I wanted to share this with everybody. So there's three things to start with today, and then we're gonna talk next time on talking about one specific aspect of that. But today, there's three areas which I'm going to go through. But the first of all is to figure out what is the goal of your business, and I don't mean like the goal of my business is to change the world of tech, right? That isn't what I mean by the goal of the business. Do I want to run it forever? Do I want to scale it? Do I want to sell it? That's the goal I want to talk about in this context. So we're going to talk about goals in just a minute. Then we're going to talk about zones of geniuses, and stick with me because I'm going to come back to that and explain it. And Mary's going to dive in here as well. And then we're going to talk about, okay, so once you've figured those two things out, then what? What's the first highs? How do you get supported when you feel like you've not got any money, right? And I'm just going to use the word fractional here. Taylor's what I mean. The fractional world is exploding right now. It's a great way to get really good support at a decent price, because to be honest, no business starting out needs a full-time anything other than CEO. You just don't. So you don't need to hire a full-time somebody. Get a fractional somebody in the door, and they will have different experience from the person who's going to take you to IPO if that's where you're going. But that's okay, because when you're ready to get to that point, you're going to change your executive team. Be okay with that. Okay, so let's take those three steps. First one, goals. Like, what is the, I guess, financial goal of your business? Or maybe it's how you want the business to be in 10 years. This is a great question. I personally, I cannot imagine retiring. I love what I do. I intend to run this business forever, to the point I keep telling my husband, I'm never retiring. Right. So that's one way. Mary, you got a very different goal from me. Would you mind sharing with everybody what is your goal for your business?
I do have a different goal. So my goal, well, of course, is to help. That is truly the goal of the business, is to help other businesses
Yeah.
grow. But my personal goal is to exit in 5 years
Mm-hmm.
and give my business to the employees. Like, that is my goal. I want to exit so that I can spend my time raising my babies, doing my passion projects for women entrepreneurs, and but then leave all of the people that helped me build this business in a great financial place by being owners in it. So that is my goal.
Yeah, and I
very different.
Very different. And there's nothing is wrong. I really want anybody listening to this to realize there is no right or wrong answer here. But if you don't know, like I think you can change your mind, by the way. I'm a big believer in make a decision, but update your decision based on new data. Don't sit on the fence because, I might make my decision differently next week or next year. Make a decision, operate by it, change your decision, and then change how you operate. Sitting on the fence is just not good. But, I have clients who we're here to build something to go to IPO. We're here to scale to $1 billion. We're here, whatever it is, know what it is you're aiming for in terms of the operation of the business. You can then have a big vision. Mary and I have, a vision for our business, right? But that is different from what you want to do with it. And the reason why what you want to do with it really matters is because it can then dictate how you invest. If you're aiming for a quick exit, it may well make sense, for example, to get investors. In this day and age, that is a lot of hoops to jump through. And I think you need to be very cognizant of what's happening in terms of handing over control to investors. If you do go for investment, but it can be a great way to scale quickly and get out quickly. It can be a great way to get really expert advice from investors, being aware of their limitations about what is going to scale quickly, but they're going to have blinkers in other respects. If, like me, you just want to run a business forever because it's just you just like coming to work, you do not want investment. You want to grow slow and steady. So everything what is the goal? That's the first piece because it dictates how you're going to invest your hard-earned dollars, your profit into next hires. If you're going to scale quickly, for example, it may well make sense to just invest all your profit over and over. But if it's actually I want slow and steady, you need to make sure you're taking care of you. Let's just be real here, ladies. Take care of you. That's really important. And then the second piece of information you need is zones of genius. Mary, I've explained this to you a couple of times. Do you want to take over here? I can talk about zones of genius all day. I love it. But do you want to chime in on zones of genius a little bit or not?
Sure. Yeah. So this has changed my perspective so much, talking about, who you are and what you do great, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that at the end of the day, even if you are overwhelmed and all the things, if you sat down to do XYZ, you can do it at an extremely high level,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of the layman's terms. I'm sure you have a much more clinical and better description of it. But where I think it's so important as a CEO, and can also help you can kind of turn into the bottleneck, two things. One being who you were before the CEO. Right. So in my case, I was a marketer is one of my hats, right? Marketing is a zone of genius. I run my company as a CEO, but marketing is my zone of genius. So it can be hard for me, particularly to let go of marketing because that is what I feel closest to. That is it's my baby. And, it's my company. It's everything. Right. But I kind of I've got so many different thoughts right now on this that what I want you guys listening to take away from at least this first part of Zone of Genius is what your weaknesses are someone else's zone of genius. And that is where you have to find. That is your ticket to growth, is putting people in their zones of genius so that you can lead, you can be the visionary. And it doesn't mean that you can't step in as they need you, but it's not serving you and the organization by spending too much time in effort outside of your zone of genius.
I love this.
I'm going to pass it back to you because I'd like you to give them the Toni version of zone of genius a little more polished.
Well, I mean, it's genius. It's banded around a lot, but I don't think most people fully understand it. So it is worth just taking a moment to fully understand. So in my opinion, your zone of genius, it's when I call it your flow state. It just flows out of you. You sit down and it just comes and it feels good. And you're like, where did that go? I've done a day's work in half an hour and I could carry on. It just feels good. But it requires two things. It requires you to be very good at it. But being very good at it, but not loving it is zone of excellence. So really, there is a difference between loving it and good at it. So you need to love it, and you need to be passionate about it. Those are the two things you need. If you're just good at it, I call that your zone of excellence, and you probably got promoted on the back of that. You've probably done very well. Maybe that's why you started this business. A zone of excellence gets you so far, but ultimately it is not the thing you should be doing. Note that your zone of genius changes over time, and things that are your zone of genius become your zone of excellence. As you grow, you'll start learning things that you're passionate about, but you're not very good at. But as you get better at it, it becomes your zone of genius. And the things that were your zone of genius come down to your zone of excellence. And this has got to be this evolution over time. And as a CEO, you've got to watch out for this, because you need to get rid of the stuff that is in your zone of excellence, but not your zone of genius. And you absolutely have to get rid of things that are in your zone of drudgery, where you either like them or good at them. Accounting for me and Mary. You have to get rid of those things. So it's worth looking. What is in your zone of genius? What is in your zone of excellence? Then take a look at your team. If you've got a team, each of them will have a zone of genius. Each of them will have a zone of excellence. Each of them will have a zone of drudgery. There's actually also a learning zone, which it's a longer conversation for another day. Mm-hmm. But you need a map out of all the functions your business needs to do. Who does what where? Like, is that their zone of genius? Is that their zone of excellence? Is that their zone of drudgery? Ideally, in your business, every function that is critical for success, which is another conversation we're going to talk about a bit more like next week, every function that's critical for success has somebody where it's their zone of genius. If all 10 of you in your business all have the same zone of genius and everybody hates this work over here, you got a big problem. You've hired mini me's and everybody wants to do the stuff that you don't love. There's just this constant.
I was going to ask you that, Toni. Like, what happens when you do hire those mini me's? Because
I mean, we do this. We hire people who are passionate about what we're passionate about. It's a classic mistake that I'm yet to meet a leader who's not done that at least once, because we have that conversation. We have a meeting of minds in the interview, and we're like, oh, that woman there, I'm hiring her. She's awesome. And then she wants to do the same work as you. And nobody wants to do this bit of work here. I say women because that's what I'm passionate about. But, you've got to hire people who love the work you hate, right? And that brings me to the third piece of this puzzle, where we're going to wrap up today, which is the first hires, or your next hire, when you're feeling like, do I have the money or not? So we're going to have a bit more of a conversation next week around, like, is it the right time to spend money? But when you've decided, okay, I really need to do something, the first next hire for you needs to be somebody who fills one of those zones of drudgery for you or your team. That's the first next hire, right? And the best thing to do in that situation, if you've not got a lot of money to play with, is the fractional piece. The trusted advisor, the executive coach, if it was me, a trusted advisor from your board, a fractional person who has the expertise but can just do a couple of hours a week for you. Bring in that high caliber person who's operating in your zone of drudgery, or a key zone of drudgery in your business. That is the fastest return on investment you can make. And if you do it right, you'll get that back 10 times over within 2 months. That's the goal. Do you want to chime in here, Mary, about your experience of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the traps in what you just explained that I think some CEOs make is that they hire the execution person, and they want to be the strategy across all of the different areas.
Yeah.
As opposed to, obviously we do have a fractional CMO offering. These are high level, very experienced marketing experts who, yes, can do execution, but their zone of genius is the strategy, right?
Yeah.
And if you as the CEO is trying to come up with a strategy outside of your zone of genius, guess what? It is not going to be what your organization needs. I can just guarantee that.
Yes.
So then if you're taking the money and you're like, well, I came up with the strategy, I can just hire the execution person at half the cost or a quarter of the cost. Well, great. But if it wasn't the right strategy, you just wasted money. And I see that time and time again of like, I can create the strategy across, I can do across anything, but of course I see it in marketing most often. And nine times out of 10, even if you were a marketer before you became a CEO, it is so hard to market your own company effectively. Yeah. I, as the owner of an agency, brought my own marketing plan to my CMOs, and they blew it up. And I thank them so much for it, because again, it's very hard to market your own, something you are so close to. And
Yeah.
they helped me see things that I weren't even on my radar. So I
Yeah.
share that as a tale of caution, that just because your zone of genius can apply to other businesses or, whatever, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean you can do it for yourself. So two lessons there. Even if you're an expert in something, it doesn't mean you can do it super well in your
Yeah.
own for your
Yes.
own business. But secondly, do not replace execution with strategy when what you really need is the strategy.
100%. Bring in somebody to give you the strategic work as a package of a project. Like, and I mean, again, this comes back to the fractional. Hire somebody to do the project of the strategy with you. I see this so many times in leadership teams of they try and hash together strategy. Most people don't do strategy very well, especially when it's not something they know. But when it's your baby, as a CEO, when it's your baby, it's so hard to take off your blinkers. And it's, I'm a coach, but I've had a coach since day one of my business, right? Mary is a marketer who has marketing people working with her to support her, because as a CEO, your job is to run the business, and therefore you're in a different mindset than you would be if you were doing it somewhere else, right? So I think it's a really important thing to recognize that limitation of being so in your own head because it's your baby. I do think this is partly like when it's our baby, it's hard. It's hard to kind of allow it to be the strategic thing. Make those tough decisions you'd make or suggest to somebody you were advising. And then there's, of course, making the mistake, and I'm just going to call this out as somebody who's done this 10 times over herself, but also sees it all the time, making the mistake of thinking, yeah, I can do that. And there is a place for scrappy. There's 100% a place for scrappy. Sometimes you just got to get going. I'm the first one to say you do not need a website to build a business, for example. You do not. And your first website should just be a boring landing page, because your first round of business is networking, right? And I say that somebody who doesn't like networking. So scrappy is great up to a point, and then you need to get somebody who can do better than you. So don't hold on for too long. Mary, any final words before we wrap up? We'll talk about what's coming next week, but any final words before we wrap up today?
One quick thing is fear. A lot of times you're the bottleneck because you're afraid not to be.
Yeah.
And I just want to call that out, because I think it's hard to sit with that word of fear and recognize that that's the problem, and not, money, talent, all the things. That's truly just your own fear of letting go and trusting, which again, if you are a female founder CEO, I see way more often, right? But, Toni, you've helped me with this, and I just want to give you a chance to kind of share a little bit about how do you coach CEOs out of the fear?
The fear, I mean, it's such an individual thing. So there's like no one size fits all, but it's really about holding space to examine a fear. I think a lot of the time, all fear comes about because we have this amorphous feeling. We have a gut instinct that stops us doing something or makes us do something. But we just need to take a moment to examine it, to actually say, well, what is it that we're actually afraid of here? What are we actually upset about here? So whenever you have a fear like this, I want you to slow down and say, what is actually going on? And by slowing down, I mean, have a conversation. I mean, write it out. When we just sit with our thoughts swirling, that's called fast thinking brain, swirly brain, whatever you want to call it. The swirly brain is the most unhelpful thing. Write it down or speak, even if you're just speaking to the mirror, because when you write or speak, you have to slow down your thoughts, and you move into literally a different form of cognition. Slow thinking, there's fast thinking, slow thinking. It's a thing in psychology. Slow thinking is much more rational. You can have a conversation with yourself, like, what am I actually afraid of happening? What do I think would happen if I did this and it went wrong? Well, how would I behave? Asking yourself those kind of questions, or better yet, get somebody to ask them for you, so you've got something to reflect back your irrationalities to you. Super, super powerful. Does that help, Mary? Is that what I did with you, do you think?
And it resonates so much with our coaching sessions, and just how you have helped me so much get past those, and just recognize that it was fear in the first place, right?
Yeah,
because I thought it was something else, and a lot of times we peel back the onion, and it was.
I think that's a really, really good point. I think a lot of the time we disguise fear as decisions. And we think we're making a rational decision, but it's come from an unhealthy place. If you aren't good at recognizing your emotional state governing you, it's worth always sitting on a decision for 24 hours. Now, a CEO, we have to move fast. And it's one of the things I always talk about is don't be the bottleneck by moving too slowly. But while you're learning to understand, is my brain making me make this decision for good reasons or poor reasons? Learn to sit on a decision for just a few hours, just to give yourself time to go, is this coming from a place of fear or is it coming from a place of logic? Space. Give yourself space.
Love it. Where are we going next week, Toni?
Oh, well, I was going to ask you if you want to talk about this, because next week, I mean, we're going to build on this, but next week, really, we're going to use brand as a bit of a business case for how to be making the decisions about when to expand. So we're going to use Mary's core expertise here to really help you understand, like, when do you scale? What does that look like? How you make that decision? We're going to build it around basically brand identity. Particularly, this really resonates with me. Your identity as a human versus your identity as CEO versus your identity as a business. How do those three things interact? How do they need to be separate? How to tease them apart if maybe you've made them one and the same? And do you want to expand on that a little bit more, Mary?
Yeah, and I honestly, Toni, you were such a great example of this in a lot of ways, but I'll bring it. We'll talk about a lot of different examples for organizations at different stages, because this does apply no matter what stage you are at as a CEO with your business. The brand is you, but it cannot just be you. That is from and if you get that right from the beginning, you are light years ahead of others, and you avoid the brand starting to feel like a trap. And we'll dig more into that next Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen, I want to just point out here, this applies to big brands as well. We've all seen a couple of big brands where the CEO is famous. And what happens when their personal brand and identity changes and how that impacts the business. So this is something, it's a really, really hard one to get right. I don't think there is a right answer, but I want people to go in with their eyes wide open and really understand what's going on and where there should be gaps and where there should be synergy. So I'm really excited about next week. It's such a great conversation as well for just the theory of taking a bottleneck in the business and teasing it apart. Absolutely. So we're going to dig in next week, same time, same place next week. I would love it if you join us. If you've got questions in the meantime, I'm going to try not to cough now. I've got something caught in my throat. But if you've got time, pop in the comments and tell us, what did you like this week? What would you like to hear more of? Mary, any final words?
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next week.